Murder at Ocean View College. Chapter 30. More company. Danny and Jade stood quietly for a moment in the middle of Ms. Quinn's office. There was no light coming in through the open doorway with the yellow tape across the opening. They decided it was safe to continue the search for clues at the crime scene. Danny took his flashlight off his belt and switched it on. He moved the light beam slowly around the walls of the office, over the filing cabinets, the bookcases, and the desk. Again, they really didn't know what they were looking for. When they got to the end of the bookcase, Danny shone the light on the computer. He stared at it for a minute, then turned to Jade and spoke in a whisper. Wasn't that computer turned on the day of the murder? I remember a screensaver. Fish, wasn't it? Right, said Jade. I think that's right. But so what? Somebody turned it off. Probably somebody from the main office. Saves energy, you know, Jade said logically. But what if there was something on there that the killer didn't want anyone to see? Danny was getting excited again. Like what? Email, Danny said immediately. Could be. Why don't we try to get into her email account? It wouldn't hurt to try. Here, Danny said, handing her the flashlight. You give me some light, and I'll try it out. Jade shone the light over the keyboard and screen, while Danny put on Jade's plastic gloves. Danny turned on the machine and waited for it to boot up. In a minute, the menu appeared. There was no request for a password. He hoped they could also get into her email account without a password. They weren't so lucky. Over his shoulder, he asked Jade, what do you think she would use as a password? Precious. The word came from somewhere behind them. Startled, they turned around quickly to see Harvey Taylor pointing a gun at the two of them. Jade dropped the flashlight. Precious. Mr. Taylor repeated the word and continued. She thought that was funny. Rubies are precious. Her name was Ruby. Jade realized her mouth was hanging open. She closed it. She looked at Danny. He didn't look afraid, except for the slight shaking of his hands. She realized that Danny's guess about the murderer was correct. But how were they ever going to get out of this one? Maybe Danny could talk their way out. Or maybe they could distract him. There was only one of him, and there were two of them. Maybe. Mr. Taylor, Danny sounded calm. What's going on? What are you doing here? I saw your car out back in the parking lot. I figured you must still be snooping around. Holding the gun steady, he reached into his pants pocket with his other hand. And I found this on the floor of my office. He held up the broken pencil. You know, janitors turn on the lights. They don't work by flashlight. You must have gone out the window. I couldn't find you. Danny's hands were shaking harder. He clutched his shirt to keep his hands still. He concentrated, trying to think what he could say next. But what are you doing here so late at night? Business. I had some business to take care of on Ruby's computer. You see, There was some email on there that might have made me look suspicious. I had to get rid of it. There was something going on between her and the coach. She wouldn't tell me, but I knew they were seeing each other. They were going to get back together again. I'm sure of it. Danny nodded. It sounded to him like Harvey Taylor was trying to excuse his actions. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. He could sense Jade behind him, but did not take his eyes off Mr. Taylor. Danny's mind was racing wildly, trying to figure out how to get them out of this office and away from this crazy man who was pointing a gun at them. "Come on," Harvey Taylor said. "Let's get out of here. This little accident shouldn't happen at school." He waved the gun toward the door. Jade was also trying to think how they could disarm their attacker. She looked around the room, but couldn't see anything that she could reach or throw. Her heart was pounding fiercely. "Hey, pick up that flashlight." Mr. Taylor pointed to the flashlight Jade had dropped. "We're not going to leave any evidence around for the police to find. Let's get out of here. Right now." He waved the gun in the direction of the door again. Jade kept her eyes on Mr. Taylor as she reached down in one quick motion, picked up the flashlight, switched it on, and aimed the light directly into his eyes, surprising him. He blinked in an automatic response to the light. Immediately, Jade shouted, "Danny!" It was just enough time. Danny did not hesitate. When the teacher closed his eyes, Danny leapt across the small room and grabbed Mr. Harry Taylor around the waist and pulled him down to the floor in another perfect football tackle.